Hello everyone, welcome back to my Windows Server 2025 training course. Today we're going to be covering Hyper-V. Hyper-V is actually going to allow us to set up our full lab environment that's going to be used later on in this course as well. But let's get right into it and discuss Hyper-V. So in this lesson, I actually already have Hyper-V installed on a physical server. It's a freshly installed copy of Windows Server 2025. The host name is gt-host, and the IP address here is 192.168.99.254. So I've skipped over the actual installation of Windows Server 2025 via USB. I'm going to post some information in the description of this video in case you need to know how to create a bootable USB. That's not a requirement to follow along with this. If you're running a version of Windows 10 or Windows 11 that's Pro or later, you can actually just install the Hyper-V role and you can run the VMs on your physical device. But the only gotcha with that is your CPU does have to support virtualization, and I recommend that you have at least 32 gigs of RAM if you want to follow everything that I'm doing. But let's get right into our server here. All right, so there's my session. And let's go ahead and get logged in. All right, the first thing you'll notice right off the bat is Windows Server Manager is always going to pop up. It's hard baked into every server OS to where this has always been the main application that you use to manage your server, install roles. But from the main page here, you actually get a quick little overview here so you can see if any services are down, if your servers have any manageability issues, anything like that. But we're going to go ahead and do a quick refresh and see what services are offline. Okay, so we definitely don't care about either one of those. They're not important. But we're going to go to Manage so we can start installing Hyper-V. We're going to add roles and features. We're going to click Next. We want role-based or feature-based installation. We see our server. Our IP address is valid. Good. And we're just going to select Hyper-V. Include the management tools. It should be selected by default. And next, we're not doing any additional features currently. And we're going to click Next. And virtual switches, we're actually going to create a one momentarily. I'll show you what that looks like. We're going to skip it for now. And for these, we'll leave blank for now. We're not going to be doing any live migrations just yet. If we do that later on in the course, we'll just set it up from scratch. Default store, this can be anywhere that you actually want your virtual machine files to be stored. So for our virtual hard disk files, I'm actually going to throw these. Let's see. Let's throw them. We can just use that drive. Or let's do F because it's going to be our fastest drive here. And I'm just going to create a new folder for hard disk. You can name this anything that you like. You just want to make sure that you know where you're storing the files. All right, and then we're going to store our config file just in the generic virtual machine folder. And the main reason I'm doing this is because this drive that I have plugged in just has very great performance as opposed to what the OS itself is actually running on. So it'll make it a little easier and faster to install. So now that we've done this, we're going to click install. All right, perfect. So now we see that our feature installation has went through and it says a restart is pending on our server. So we need to restart the server to allow everything to be fully installed. So let's just reboot it. And this thing, you may actually, this may be the first time you've seen this, but with Windows Server, it actually gives you various reasons why you can restart, which is kind of helpful if you need to go back and look and see why someone rebooted a server. Me, out of habit, usually I do other planned if I'm doing maintenance of any sort, but there's quite a bit of different options you can do here. All right, so there's our restart. And we'll come back as soon as that server's back online. All right, guys, welcome back. So our server is back online, and you can now see that we have the Hyper-V option here. That means our role was installed successfully. So if we go here and we search for Hyper-V, you're going to see Hyper-V Manager, and we're going to go ahead and open it up. Since we have it opened up, we're actually going to go ahead and pin to taskbar. All right, so you can see from the main Hyper-V window, you have Manager, which doesn't really tell you anything all that helpful. This gives you a little bit of information about what it does, how you can use Hyper-V Manager, etc. But what we want is we want to click on our physical server here, and we can see that we don't currently have any virtual machines. So from here, you can click New, you can create a virtual machine, you can do a hard disk, pretty much anything that you want there. But what we're going to do real quick is we're going to go ahead and create a new virtual switch, and we're going to want to do external. So the best way to think about an external switch is it's allowing your host to connect this VM to your external network so it can reach any resources that your devices can reach if they're on the same network, same subnet, etc. Internal and private are mainly ran for more isolated instances, but since we want these devices to have internet connectivity, we're going to create this external virtual switch. So name, we're just going to call this external vSwitch. Notes, we're just going to say this is our main switch for Hyper-V VMs. We only have one network interface card, which is this Intel i210. And that's okay. We can allow management operating system to share this network adapter. All that is totally fine. So we're going to click apply. And you're going to see a brief network outage whenever this happens. Your network interface card is going to be bonded over to this new vSwitch. And we'll give it another second to reconnect. All right, so it took a minute for that to come back online, but it is back and everything's working. We're going to go to control panel, and we're actually going to make sure that we now see that switch appear in the network adapters. So we're going to go network and sharing center, change adapter setting, and now we see our external vSwitch. We're going to check our properties. We're going to make sure all of our IP address settings are correct. So everything matches, so we're good there. So let's go ahead and close this guy out. And we're going to go ahead and create a new virtual machine. We're just going to click next. We're going to call this GTDC. We're going to follow the green tech naming convention in this case. We want this to be generation 2. It's the latest VM version. Startup memory, that's fine. 4 gigs is plenty for a domain controller that we'll be setting up in the next lesson. And the connection, we actually want this to be connected to that external vSwitch. So hard drive, let's do just 80 gigs, that's plenty. We see that our path matches the old path that we set up, so that's good. All right, so now let's see if we have our 2025 ISO in our downloads folder. We do. So we're going to install an operating system this way. We're going to install from ISO. All right, so here's our new virtual machine. So we can go ahead and start it up. Then we're going to right click and connect. And we're going to have to press a quick key to get it to boot. And I already missed the window, so we're just going to Control Alt Delete. Press a key, and we're going to enter Windows setup. All right, so we're going to click next, next. We're going to install Windows Server. And depending on the performance, we may bump this DC up to where it's running another CPU, but it should be okay with the default. Let's see. Yeah, so it defaulted to 8. That's a little overkill. We'll decrease that to 2. All right, so we'll do this. We're going to install server standard, and we'll be doing the desktop experience for this one. So there's a virtual disk 0. That's what we're going to use to install. And we just want to confirm that we're keeping nothing and we're doing a clean install. All right, we'll let this run and we'll come back as soon as it's finished. All right, guys, our server has successfully installed, so our VM is now running server 2025. We're going to set an administrator password. And we're good to go. So we're going to send a Control-Alt-Delete. And we're just going to go ahead and log in and shut down the server so we can shrink that CPU. We're going to shrink that down to 2. All right, then diagnostic data. You can really pick anything you want here. I'm just going to do required only. And there's our clean install on our VM. So let's go ahead and shut this guy down. And we're going to go to settings. And we're going to go ahead and decrease those virtual processors to 2. And while we're in here, we can also go ahead and just unmount that ISO file as well. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Only really thing I wanted to mention within the VM settings is there's a couple settings through here, like integration services for time synchronization, data exchange, heartbeat, backups for shadow copies, operating system shutdown. These are pretty typical services that you'll see turned on. Checkpoints, most everything is now production checkpoints. You don't really see standard checkpoints that often unless you have a weird issue with proprietary backup software, things of that nature. Smart paging file location, it's going to be in the same location your virtual machine files are stored. And there's a couple actions that you have here where, let's say, for the automatic start action. So what do you want this machine to do when the physical computer starts? So we're going to say automatically start if it was running when the service stopped. So we don't really want to say always start this virtual machine automatically because we might actually want it offline later on. But automatic stop action, you can do a save state, you can turn off the virtual machine or shut down the guest operating system. I will say in older versions of Hyper-V with this save the virtual machine state, I have seen a couple of issues where the VM, it basically couldn't consolidate itself properly if I remember correctly. So a lot of times I'll just do turn off the virtual machine. And I'll be honest, this could totally be fixed now with this version of Windows, but to me it's a little cleaner and you can restore from backup if there's a major issue or anything like that that happens. But other than that, that's what we're going to leave our settings to, and I'll catch you in the next video where we're going to configure our domain controller VM. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you soon.